Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have one of our favorite guests. We have Dr. Angela Celeste May. We know her as our forensic and clinically trained psychologist. She is also the president and co-founder of A.M. May and Associates Incorporated. She is the president and founder of Celeste Productions Incorporated, past president of the Michigan Psychological Association Foundation Board, the Metro Detroit Association of Black Psychologists. She's also a trustee of the Michigan Health Council. And if that's not all, she's also an author and musician. And this evening, she is here to talk to us about reality, victimization, and our perceptions. Good evening, Dr. Angie. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Kim. It's great to be here as always.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to talk about our topic. So let's get right into it. Where to start? Because there's just so much. So I attended a lecture a day ago, and the lecture was about an author. She's an attorney. Her name is Barbara McQuaid, and she wrote a book called Attack from Within. And she's talking about how disinformation in America is tearing the country apart. Mm-hmm. That's not what I want to talk about. What came out of that was a conversation with a young man who said, we in this country, we've always had polar opposite views. He said, but something has happened in the last few years where the perception, the reality that people believe, their actual thoughts have influenced how they feel about certain things. For example, when George Floyd was killed, we had the nation erupted. We had all these different protests. People were walking. Yes, there was some violent outbursts, disturbances, that type of thing. But for the most part, it was people coming together, sharing the fact that they did not like what happened, and as they should. And it was interesting because this young man said, there are people who believe that cities burn down. And he said, I have tried to explain to them vigorously, they didn't burn down. They're like, no, that's the liberal media. And so, and I know we talk about Donald Trump all the time and some of the dog whistles that he does, make America great again. Those people that are crossing the border, they're, destroying us. They're destroying the fabric of our country. They're tainting our blood, all these different things. And so there's a perception there. And I'm wondering, Dr. Angie, when we talk about perception and the concept of reality, how sometimes people are threatened by the truth or another version of reality. Can you share some thoughts on why that's problematic for people to have a warped sense of perception?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with what you were saying about the gentleman, the man who spoke up at Barbara McQuaid's her event, and talking about how we've always had these extreme ideas in our country, which is true. And when he was saying, as you were quoting, he was saying, something has happened. One of the things that's happened, and as many people have said, there's a very deliberate attack, propaganda, all those things on a very deliberate, purposeful attack on the way that we think. So if you want to really take down a people or a person, you work with their mentality. Like that's why we say that no matter the type of abuse, for example, it might be financial abuse, whatever the kind of abuse, there's always the emotional psychological component. And you can have, and that's with the physical abuse, no matter what kind, as an example. So there's a reason that there's always the psychological part there. because you need that to hook into the person, to slowly kind of get them to question reality, question their own values, just kind of start to break down their own confidence, if you will, in the things that they have believed in or trusted over the years. So I would say to that man, as part of my answer to you, that gentleman that spoke at Barbara's event, um, that one of the things that has changed, he said something's changed. Yes, that's true. One of the things that has changed is, of course, attacking it. What do we talk about? That Russian propaganda and all that. What is the aim? Attack the trust in the institutions. That's one part of it. And when we say that, we're thinking about, oh, can you trust the voting? Can you, all true. But one of the most important institutions that we have had, they call it, what do they call it? The fourth part of our government, because in our country, because we have the three main branches of the fourth branch. We have the judicial, the judges, judicial, we have the executive branch, which is the president, of course, and then we have the legislative branch.
Correct.
Congress and everything passes laws. So what's the fourth branch, the unofficial fourth branch? And that's the media.
Yeah.
And that is one of the key institutions that helps keep a healthy democracy rolling forward. So again, like I would say to that young man, one of the things that's changed is, while we've always had polarized views, there were certain aspects of the not I'm saying media, but really in journalism, journalism and all that people felt that they could trust. And when I say people, for the most part, just to like generalize, no matter what your politics were, or even if you disagreed with each other politically, everyone, again, generalizing, if Walter Cronkite said it, it's like, okay, that was, So there are certain things that we agreed on and had an anchor about. And why trust Walter Cronkite? Well, not just because he said, trust me, but what I would say to the people whose perceptions, like you're talking about, are being really toyed with and played with, and getting people to think you just can't trust anything in the media. Well, there are reasons why we actually did trust some. The journalism and all that, they're not perfect either. No, none of these institutions are perfect, but there are certain things that they have in place that have garnered that trust for a reason over, in some cases, 80, 90, over 100 years. Things like the field of journalism, you can actually lose your license. There are actually laws in place that keeps you from being able to just say whatever and make up news, and call it news any old way that you want. You actually can't do that. You can do that, but you could lose your newspaper. For those that are still reading newspapers, you can lose the license for your news program, whatever it is, in actual true journalism, because the ethics and the laws require that they vet their information that they're giving you. They require that you show your resources. You may protect your sources. You may not always say exactly who's giving you the information, but you have ways of proving and vetting that I'm not just making this up. So, and then over time, the scripture says, a tree by the fruit it bears. Over time, it's like any relationship. How do you know you can trust that person? Well, you know what? I've known them for 25 years, and they always, came through, kept their word, or if there was an issue, they always, would come for, there's a reputation that's built over time, over and over again, that creates a solid foundation of trust. So I use Walter Cronkite because he was known as, the rock.
Yes.
You can trust what he said, But there are, many examples of people and institutions like that are around, that we always felt we could trust, not because we're just naive, but based on history, just like with any relationship. So what has been targeted, coming back to the whole perception thing, what has been targeted is to begin to get people to doubt and question they could really, trust these folks or not. And so how do we do that? Well, you look at the weaknesses, you kind of look for those weaknesses and target them. One of the weaknesses is recognizing that people may not be educated and aware of how these things actually work. So it's easier to inject made up stuff because people they don't know the difference. And so that was why, as we've said before, that's why when Barack Obama first called it early in his presidency, he got in a lot of trouble with, how dare you say that Fox News is not news? He said it's not, CBS, NBC, ABC, those are news outlets. Fox is not. He said that because there's a faction that actually does news, which means it's adhering to the laws that require them to report what's actually going on. It's vetted, all of the rest. If you said it wrong or reported something incorrectly, you have to print a retraction or state. So there are so many rules and regulations in place to keep you from just like putting anything out there. If you're not in the profession or you're not around it, you don't necessarily know that. You might, and then again, you might not. So one of the ways you play around with people's perceptions is you count on their ignorance and you count on their lack of information about things, and then you start to, interject some things to get them to doubt. Another thing is, we say information is power, which it is. Information is power. Sometimes I'm sure you've noticed this as well. When people start to learn things, perfect example is like we were talking about just before we came on the air. There's so much that we don't know about our history as Black people in this country, African Americans. And as we're learning more and finding out, good gracious, like so much that we've contributed, so many things we've invented, so many things we've built that we were never taught. As you find that out, it's at one hand empowering, in terms of your perception, like, oh wow, we do more than we realize, whatever, and we can do more. But at the same time, that too can interject some doubt, because then you start thinking, well, if I didn't know this, well, what else can't I trust about my, what they didn't teach us, and well, and then it can become full blown, that our whole system of education is just lying to us. Now, our whole system of education is not lying to us. There's a big old part of it that's a lie, which is to relegate too many women, and most definitely Black folks and other people of color, to the background, and that is a skewed, untrue depiction of our history, or any history that doesn't fully tell the story of everyone's contribution. So all of that, having that perception that's not quite a reality, it's a dangerous thing. What do they say? If you don't stand for anything, you'll fall.
You fall for it. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything.
Exactly. And when you are the less you stand for something, or the less you, in this context, we could change the wording to say, the less that you feel anchored, that you can, if you don't know the information, you can find out from trusted sources, how to at least do some research, or where to go to maybe and get your questions answered. The less you have that solidly as a skill set, and knowledge about how to do that, or where you could go that you feel that it's really trusted information, it's vetted and all that, then the greater the likelihood that you will fall for anything. And again, that's another little hole, another little place there where people can just like just tell you anything. Whole cities burned down. Actually, they all burned down. All the cities burned down during, George Floyd, every one of them. Matter of fact, the city that I'm standing in right now that's fully functioning, it burned down too. They built it up in about 2 weeks. just believe anything. And that is, like we said, it's dangerous, because that softens up the ground, softens up the soil for cult-like thinking, where you begin to follow, whatever idea without checking for yourself, without vetting it, without testing it. Going back to the scripture, it says, come, let's reason together, bring your ideas, test it, find out. And the less that it's dangerous, because it takes away your autonomy.
Yes.
People can feel that they're autonomous because, as you've said, as we talk about sadly, so many people who go down the rabbit holes of these conspiracy theories, and they feel that they're powerful. It's a false, powerful feeling, because you just don't know. I know some things you don't know. You just don't know what I've been, that they have deep knowledge. Exactly. They can feel powerful, but really, in reality, they're losing their autonomy by having that perception, kind of twisted around. because they're getting further and further away from their own ability to have their own agency and going and getting the information from places that, that actually have history and make some sense. To me, it's just like, any relationship. It could be family, anybody, a relationship. It's like the difference between an established, there's a reason we use the word established when we're talking about long-term, well-connected, relationships where we've been have the ups and downs, we know each other in and out, it's like the difference between those kinds of relationships and someone that you maybe you haven't known as long, but you're just going to believe absolutely everything that comes out of their mouths, even though they haven't proven themselves. You don't know that much about their background. You don't know if they're a pathological liar. You're just going to just believe everything. And that's dangerous. So, yeah, it is a very dangerous thing. It's a very dangerous thing, and dangerous for the mentality too, to just
Yes.
have that perception away from reality.
So defining perception, it is a noun. It is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. And we're talking about why it's important to have a good perception, or dare I say, a grasp on reality.
Yes.
But how does that really play into a victim mindset? Because you'll have people who will say, and I remember when President Barack Obama said this, and he talked about we're in a global economy. And people will say, well, coal's going to come back. I know it's going to come back. And these industries have just trampled all over us, and we don't have jobs, and I can't do anything. And our country is going to pot because we don't have coal. And every time there's a presidential election and somebody brings up coal, I'm like, y'all need to let it go. Find another industry. And I get it. You want to do what your great granddaddy did, your grandfather, your grandfather, your father, and you're like, now why am I being denied this opportunity? First off, it seems like a really dangerous job. And I don't know how well it pays. And I'm not knocking anyone who does that work. But we have all these clean energies now. And I often wonder why some parts of the country who, exist as these dinosaurs, as people would like to call them, in energy, why we can't move towards the cleaner industry and get investments and new jobs and tie that into education and rebuilding a community. And that's a bigger part of a question. But when we talk about that victim mindset, after we just talked about perception, why is it, how does that play into that? Because sometimes we can say, well, that's not the reality. But then other people look at it and go, but that is my reality. So which is true?
That I love where you ended that question. That's perfect. Like, which is true. You know how they say two things can be true at the same time. So I would say that both are true. When you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you say that's not the reality, what you're talking about is the more global view of this whole thing is that coal, even though it's an industry that's still going on right now, it is on the decline and will not be the industry of the future for energy, just as you were saying. So that is true. That it's not the reality that there's going to be like all these coal jobs, coming up. But at the same time, when the person responds, like you were saying, but that's my reality, that is also true, because while it's not the global reality in their small corner of the world, where the global reality maybe hasn't fully caught up with them yet, or maybe it has caught up with them where they don't, they can't find those jobs anymore. But it's just like you said, when they said in terms of the family traditions, and for many people, in any industry, if that's something that your family did, you feel it's a part of your values, it's part of your background, it's a part of your family stories, it's been passed down. So a lot of times when someone says, well, but that's my reality, in terms of the victimization, you're taking this history away from you. You're trying to take our family values away from us. You're trying to take away our traditions away from us. So, just like you said, each generation, if they follow the previous one into this kind of work. So that victimization, I think, well, I don't think, I know that so much of that feeling like you're taking something away from me, and this is how I hold on to it, is all part of that victimization and the response to feeling victimized. So, circling that back to the whole conspiracy theory conversation, there are multiple reasons why people fall into listening to and believing conspiracy theories. And everyone's not the same. It's not all a monolith. There are some people who are more prone maybe to listening to certain conspiracy theories, maybe because of some kinds of experiences that they've had, but that doesn't mean that they're full on mentally ready to be a cult member. And then there are other people who tend to, just generally speaking, follow conspiracy theories. So some of the differences, and I will talk about the victimization as part of all that as well. Some of the differences are, for example, if a person may have had a particularly bad experience, like the lady you talked about who did the video series on that horrible marriage that she had with this man who sounds like he's probably a narcissist or has a lot of narcissistic traits. She may just strictly as an example, I'm not saying this is actually her, but a person who having had a very traumatic relationship, for example, maybe because of the trauma and because of what they've been through, may be more prone to conspiracy theories specifically about men, or specifically about women, or specifically about relationships, but you can't convince them of any conspiracy theories about other stuff because they're, well, where's the research? Well, they're not taking that, or they're not accepting that easily. They're not gullible like that. All apologies to those who are just listening. All kind of, I'm not trying to insult you. It's a little gullible to just believe it. I've been gullible in my life. It's okay. It's all right. But let's, when you start hearing, it's easy for people to kind of like fall down that, well, all women are blah, blah, blah. All men are blah, blah. You can't trust anybody. Those are broad, vast exaggerations that there's not a single man or woman standing on the face of the earth that you could possibly trust. That's extreme. That can grow out of what they've been taught, maybe what they've seen growing up, and maybe their own relationships. But you are not going to hear them go around repeating Russian-esque propaganda, or they're not. Then you have other categories of people. I was going to say, and so therefore, overarching all of this is this whole victimization thing. So if you're prone to a conspiracy theory of any kind, you may be more likely to be gullible to believe things that people tell you and just follow them without checking it out for yourself. Or you may check it out in places and in resources that are actually not reliable or trustworthy because you're not sure how what the difference is. I don't know how to go to a resource. So there was that man that just kind of, rode through town last week in his covered buggy. He was selling some upside down Bibles with, carpet. He had a carpet
for $59.99.
$59.99. I trust him because he sounded good when he, stepped out of that. And he told us some stories about how the Constitution was with it. That may not be.
And it was wrapped in a flag. It was wrapped in a flag. We can't make
That's
this
what got
up.
me right there. It was wrapped in a flag.
I said,
So
wow.
maybe that's not the best source or resource or most trustworthy.
And he autographed them.
Okay. Now it's real.
I'm
now
just saying.
Now the autograph may have been, he may have signed it Jane Doe.
Hey, this is very true. This is very true.
But he signed it.
Yes.
So therefore, yeah, exactly. But so you open yourself up to being victimized by allowing yourself to accept things that could actually harm you. You may have incurred some harm by emptying your pockets and your purse of $60 because you were just taken advantage of. Knowledge is power. So the more that you listen to conspiracy theories, the less actual information, quality information that is based in fact, based in reality, it's shared reality, etc. So yeah, you're more open to being victimized. You may be more open to, like we talked about in our last discussion, open to that person, man or woman, who may love bomb you at first, and you end up being victimized because they're actually has narcissistic traits,
Yep.
and they're taking advantage of you in the relationship. And it doesn't mean you're weak. Anyone can fall for that stuff, but you may find yourself, if you're believing just, absolutes and outrageous stuff that they're telling you, we may not think of those things as conspiracy theories, but still, they're just like kind of that same quality of, non-vetted, didn't check it out, just tell you whatever, and you can be victimized financially, mentally, all those kinds of things. Then you have another category of people who are more prone, perhaps, to believing all kinds of conspiracy theories in all kinds of situations. And we know, and it's not a new thing, but in terms of, it's been around,
Mm-hmm.
people do
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But you're absolutely right. We're seeing it more than ever, and it's more prevalent. It's happening,
Yes. Yes.
all over the place, like Barbara McQuaid in her book was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And what helps perpetuate that is, you have people with a spotlight. I started to say people in authority, but people with great, with some influence. And in this day and age, that just means they just plop their computer in front of them and put the camera
Yes.
on. So they're on the
Mm-hmm.
screen, YouTube or whatever. Perpetuating that stuff, telling you that kind of stuff, it reinforces. It's one of the reasons that the internet can be dangerous. You got to be careful what you're listening to. We know people have been radicalized just
Yes.
looking at video. So again, like you said, the victimization, you can be victimized, you can be radicalized, you can be convinced to believe all kinds of stuff because you don't have that anchor where you know how to test reality. And in my profession, we actually have the term called reality testing. You
Ah.
actually test reality. And I'll tell you this, you've actually experienced it and didn't know that's what they called it.
Wow. Okay.
I'll tell
So explain, Dr. Angie.
I will tell you. If you've ever had anesthesia and you woke up, or if you ever, anything like had your babies or whatever the case,
Mm.
and you know how a few times they'll come in before, during, and after, and they do reality testing with you. They'll say, they're not just checking records, they want to see, do you know what's your name?
Mm-hmm.
What's your date of birth?
Yes.
That
Oh
they
my goodness.
They're reality test. And they're, they're again, they already know that. They know the answer. They're trying to see, do you know? Where
I
are you?
always
Are you out of
wonder
the fog? Are you
why.
just kind of under?
I always wonder why doctors ask. I'm like, it's in the chart. Don't you see it? Why do
Right,
I
right,
have to
right. Why you
repeat
keep
it
asking?
again?
Don't you know? Don't you know? They're trying to see if you know. Exactly. And a more extensive reality testing, which they'll do a little bit more of, like with my mom, she was like, very with it to, all the way up to her death, to age 90. But they were checking because she had a stroke and stuff. She
Mhm.
lost some memory and stuff, but she knew. So they would take it beyond that. They would start with that, what's your name, blah, blah. And then they would ask, what year is it? Who's the president?
Mhm.
Sometimes we have to, like, I got to check. Okay, 2024, I think. But
Right.
yeah, that's, so you have experienced reality test. Exactly. That's why they keep,
Wow.
where are you mentally? Is the stuff worn off yet? If it's taking medication, all that. Yep, they may throw in your address and see, they know your address. You just said it. So so we actually call that reality testing. Are you, where are you with you understanding reality? Are you anchored in that? So definitely you can be victimized in terms of sliding into cult following. You can be victimized in personal relationships. People take advantage of you because, like I used the term earlier, that whole idea of having agency. You may not have all the information, but do you at least know reputable, that's the word, reputable sources
Yes.
where you
Yes.
might find them. What makes them reputable? Have they been around a long time? Do they have some kind of additional authority over them that might help make sure that, like attorneys, they have to adhere to certain rules and ethics and regulations. Doctors, same thing. Psychologists, same thing. Journalists, same thing. Like I said, a lot of people don't know there's a license over that. Some of that's on purpose as well. I think, now that we're talking about it, I think that it behooves those in journalism, as they're able to. I mean, folks can't just go rogue all over the place on the air or whatever it is. But I think that collectively we need to educate the public more about just some of those basic things that that they actually can't just say whatever. So the lines have been blurred because of companies like Fox News, where they do have an actual news department, but then the vast majority of the stuff that people are watching, the most eyeballs are on oftentimes during prime time or whenever, are from these
Right.
opinion people. They're just throwing stuff out there. And of course they do it on purpose to sound like, it's all purposeful to sound like journalists in the way that they speak. They're behind a desk and all the rest, and they're just making some stuff up.
Yep.
All the place, blurring the lines. The fact that people put stuff on, I heard that she heard that I heard secondhand, third hand, and fifth hand. I don't know if it's a rumor, but what I'm thinking, and stuff goes viral like this, or even not viral, they'll just put something on Instagram and people take that as fact.
Yes, they do.
News, so the lines have become very blurred between what we might think is true. And I mean, I've been victim to that. I've seen stuff and I'm like, oh man. But I always pause and say, okay, let me check that out. Is that true? Like, I'll be like, oh, really? And sometimes I tell you the most recent one, and I didn't check it because I just glanced at it, because normally that's what I'll do. I'll be like, let me go check this out, and
The Golden Girls one, that threw everybody.
No, we said Golden Girls?
Yep, the Golden Girls, where they were saying it was a reboot. And what's her name? Minnie Riperton's daughter. She's a comedian.
Right.
And there were like 3 other women. I can't call who they
I
are.
think I did hear about that. Okay.
And apparently that was one of those dupes that came through, and they were like, nope, that was a fool. It was, we fooled you, we got you. It was not. It was not.
Oh wow. Yeah, that was one of the stories where I didn't take a deep dive. I just kind of glanced over. I was like, oh, okay, that might be interesting. So I went about my business.
Yeah, same
so
here.
Yeah, exactly that kind of thing. I was going to mention just Easter, just this past Sunday. And I saw, the reason I thought it might be real is because I always will glance at, or usually if I have time, just glance at it at the bare minimum, who's reporting it. Like, where's that coming from? And it looked like, I don't know if it was AOL, like I was going to AOL to check my mail or whatever it was. And I was looking at the headlines. It was something like that, where typically it's new, it's vetted or whatever. And I just glanced at where they said President Biden has declared Easter Sunday Trans Recognition Day or something like that. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see that, but I've seen another article similar to that.
Yeah. And I was like, oh wow, really? I don't want it to be declared Black Folks Day.
Right.
Jesus
it's
risen.
Easter.
That's all
right.
I'm looking at. It just, and I remember, because I was, I was moving on to do other things I didn't have, but it was like, oh wow, man, I'm kind of disappointed. I would, man, it just
from what exactly. From what I read, it was a statement. He wasn't declaring it as a day.
Because it had been declared like 15 years ago. It wasn't something he did. It was already there.
Right.
I mean, of course, I know he's a devout Christian. He's a devout Catholic, all of that. But yeah, exactly. He was just acknowledging that. And I did, when I found that out later, and I was like, oh man, what? Especially in this day and age, it can be easy if it looks like it's from a trusted source or whatever. And I was like, now, had I actually clicked on the article or looked at it, I probably would have seen, because I think it was a trusted source, they probably would have said, this is what people are saying, but in reality, blah, blah, blah. But I found that out, like the next day or whatever.
Right.
So it's, we don't want to give people the impression that we're like, pointing at people, you gullible people. It's easy for anybody.
Yes.
If you don't have, and you don't have to go to college for it. College is a great help for that. But regardless, the main thing is that you kind of learn where, what's considered a trusted source, how to sift through the noise. That's why my friend that wrote
Yes.
the book that edited excellent, he talks about that. And I would say to encourage people to do more of that. I'm glad to hear more people saying that out loud. Facebook is not the news, social media.
Mhm.
Even though a lot of young people I know, and not to stereotype just young people, but tend to get their news from TikTok or wherever it is.
Right.
That's not, it may be true, may not be, that's not necessarily, I think the more we encourage people to know how to look for the things that would let them know it might be a red flag, and how maybe some trusted ways to know how to vet the information that they're taking in, the less likely that they will be victimized. I
Absolutely.
want to say one last little quick thing too,
Please.
from a psychological perspective also. We talked about traits in terms of
Mhm.
narcissism, and everyone with narcissistic traits does not necessarily have the full-blown personality disorder, of course. Some do. But it's the same thing with paranoia.
Mhm.
There are people with paranoid traits, of course. There's paranoid personality disorder, where it's a full, people
Mhm.
with paranoid personality disorder, definitely. And then even some of those with tendencies, paranoid kind of tendencies, are definitely ripe for all kinds of conspiracy theories. So that's why I was also saying it's not a monolith, because there are some people just more prone to,
Mhm.
to kind of going in those directions as well. And along those lines, we don't diagnose from afar, as
Yes.
we don't do it
Yes.
from afar.
Yes.
However, Jenny Thomas, she laughs, our Supreme Court Justice, Clarence
Clarence time.
Thomas's wife,
Clarence. Yes.
yes, here in the United States.
Mhm.
Um, you may know this. I learned it a couple of years ago, I think, as they were really looking at his behavior and her behavior and all that with the insurrection here. She had been in a cult.
Oh no, I did not know that.
She had
Mm.
been in a cult as a younger lady,
Mm.
and she had been in a cult for a while, and she'd gotten out of that cult. However, she kind of got out of the cult. So some people get out of it, really, really wake up from that and learn that, that's really not whatever. Other people may leave a cult and still retain some of the
Mhm.
traits that might make them prone to following people down, that whatever. So, in light of that history, as I learned about that, it kind of it, it helped explain, at least from a distance, I don't know her or anything, maybe why she's so into the MAGA. And she's not the only one, of course, but that MAGA cult thing. So I just, you mentioned her as an example. That's some people, maybe many people, who go down these rabbit holes, who allow themselves to be victimized by uh, letting people just tell them whatever, and leading them to the nation's capital to get themselves arrested, while the
Mhm.
person who called them there remains scot-free. You can be
Absolutely.
victimized, to lose your own freedoms,
Mhm.
listening to people tell you to do whatever, because you're prone, you're maybe more paranoid and more likely to want to follow a cult leader or whatever the case is. So some people just on the other end of the spectrum just have those traits, or maybe even a full-blown paranoid personality disorder as well.
Absolutely. This is fascinating. I came across a post on
Mhm.
social media in one of my political groups, and someone posted a picture of one of the insurrectionists, and he had a t-shirt on. It said, "Yeah, I was there January 6th," and it was his mugshot. And I said, "Now, is this real? Seriously? We have shirts now identifying ourselves?" I was like, okay, this is, a bit much.
Mhm.
But going back to your example where you were talking about being a victim and really believing, there's another video that I saw, and this is a man who was working in a plant
Mhm.
who was arguing with the president of the United States, which was President Joe Biden. He had gone to the plant to visit with the UAW workers. I believe it was here in Michigan. And this guy who's a UAW worker on the line wanted to argue with the president. Why are you lying? You're trying to take our guns. So the handlers for the president were like, okay, come on, we're going to keep him moving. He said, nah, I'm going to answer this. He said, I'm not trying to take it. And they went back and forth. And the UAW worker said, but there's a viral video. And I said, oh, you poor man. Somebody probably did AI, which is
absolutely.
artificial intelligence, because we see it now. It has been proven that Donald Trump has used AI to show him in different pictures with African American folk, Black folk in America.
Exactly. That
It's
he was
not
never
happening.
with. That
He was never with.
That's
He's
right.
never with. He may have a few people, but these are crowds of different people all across the country. They're all fake. They're just as fake as he is. And it's just interesting that it is so easy, not just because people can be confused, but the tactics and the techniques that are here now make it that much more difficult sometimes to spot the fakes, to spot what really is not real, or as you said, with Fox News, you have people who sit behind desks. It looks like it's a newsroom. They talk to you as if they are anchors, and that's what you think that they are. And you're like, oh, these are trusted people. They come into my living room every day at 6 o'clock, just like the news would. And it's not. And it's not.
And I tell you, again, that whole knowledge is power, you know, how, because just like you said, it's the AI, it's gotten so sophisticated. You know, it can be easy to be like, you know, wow, you know, it seems so real. The Fox News example you were just like reiterating, if you listen a little more carefully, let me preface this by saying I do not watch Fox News. I may have glanced at something every now and again or stumbled across whatever. But if you listen to what in terms of those prime time anchors, listen to what they're saying. They don't report on stuff because then they would have to like actually vet it and back it up. So they do a lot of, what I've noticed is they do a lot of these asking questions, and they ask it in a way that it's very leading to their audience. Like, do we really believe this? Is President Biden really blah, blah, blah? And well, then why did he do this? I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, I'm just going to call him a liar right out loud, but I mean, if he wasn't, why would he? Leading question. When are you going to actually give some facts? When are you going to tell us what's going on? There's a lot of that goes on. You know, a lot of you like listen to what they say, listen. Yeah, very, very interesting. And there are other clues too, although AI and everything, like you said, it has gotten more and more sophisticated. One of the clues is, again, think about the history of what you're looking at. Returning to number 45, as we call.
Yes.
We avoided calling him president while Donald Trump was in there because it was
disrespectful to the office.
Disrespectful to the office.
Yes.
God bless him. Continue to pray for him and those around him in their hour of sickness. But if we go back to him and we know his history, now, you know, he's still an opportunist.
Oh, absolutely.
Go wherever the wind blows, And I still say he would be on the front lines holding the biggest picket sign, leading the NAACP crowd.
If that's what he thought, yes.
If that's what he thought was going to get him some money, get him some whatever he's, you know, out here trying to get. But outside of that, if you know him, you know his history. Because remember, during his trying to be in Hollywood days, the 90s, 80s, 90s, all that, and his, you know, trying to be in Hollywood before the political thing, you know, he was always, you know, hanging out with the hip hop this and the rapper that. He was a Democrat for years.
The most fascinating, popular Black people, Black actors,
all of
Oprah Winfrey, all of those people. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But again, he was trying to have their status rub off on him. He was trying to get the cool points, wanted to be accepted by Hollywood, wanted to be accepted by all right. So if we know who we're dealing with, and we do know he has racist tendencies and all the rest, or just plain racist. I don't want to accuse the man from what we've seen.
Central Park 5. We only have to say 3. Central Park 5. We only have to say those 3 words. Central Park 5. Young men.
Public-facing facts.
Yes, young men who were wrongly interrogated,
accused,
accused, charged, and
pressured
served
it.
time. Yes.
Exactly. Then were
Or something.
exonerated completely because they never raped this woman or
That's
would.
right.
And
Right.
he still, Trump still, when he took out a full page ad, they
Yes.
still need to be, executed or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
regardless. So he
Mm-hmm.
have a long history of racism
Mm-hmm.
that, like his father.
Not letting Black people stay in his properties, not wanting to
Exactly.
work with Black contractors or stiffing
Exactly.
people. Every casino, every development he goes in, he with all the best intentions, is at least what people think about, and then he pulls back and files bankruptcy. I don't have any
Exactly.
money.
Exactly.
So
So with that history, again, you can, if you just take a little time to do it, like a little dig, find out some history, kind of read a little bit. You don't have to make it your whole profession or anything.
mhm.
What is the likelihood, again, to kind of like vet, help teach people what's the likelihood that you're going to see him with bunches of Black people where they're touching him
Yes.
all over the
Embracing him.
country? Okay,
Embracing him.
embrace it. You're going to let the Black people touch him and embrace it. See, he likes to have one or two in the background at his rallies, pay a
Yep.
couple. Well, no, he doesn't pay. He didn't come off a dime. So like have them staged where it looks like he's got a few sprinklings of one or
Mm-hmm.
maybe two Black, but whole groups of Black folks, like you said, that AI generated false, fake photos of him.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they're not famous. They're not, he doesn't get anything from whatever. That doesn't even, unless he's had some great conversion, because people do change. He could have just been, converted and taken away from his racist heart. Maybe he's just discovered the light. But if that is not the case, there's a high degree of unlikely, that bad grammar, high unlikeliness,
Yes.
highly unlikely, yeah, that he would actually just be embracing all these Black people just all across the country. That doesn't even fit with what we know about the person from decades of public, his public exposure. And if you don't know anything about his decades of public exposure, you could just do a little digging.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
Central Park 5
That's right.
and his apartments. So apartment complexes didn't want to let Black folks in. So he has a history. Fox has a history. Trusted media sources and journalists have history. There are ways we can find out so that we can, you can protect yourself from being victimized by people just telling you anything or showing you even the most sophisticated AI put together. There can be ways to try to find out if that's really true or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Angie, that is a great way to end our podcast. Before we get out of here, tell people how they can find you on social media and how they can reach out to you and all the things you have coming up.
I think all the things. Let's see. You can find me on the let's see, not all social media, but some of the main ones. So Angela Celeste May, just look for my full name. On YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. I use it a little bit, X a little bit, as an individual. And then I have the Instagram and Facebook with my sister, who's my business partner at A.M. and Associates Incorporated, which is our counseling, consulting, and coaching company. So we have a presence on A.M. Associates is on Instagram and on Facebook. You can also find me Dr. Angela Celeste May on Facebook. It's a separate Facebook page specifically dealing with music. And you can reach out to me at Celeste, my middle name, Celeste, and then MUS, short for music, and the number 1 at AOL.com. If you're in terms of booking for performances, I am a vocalist and multiple instrumentalist, and I also teach music as well. Let's see, of course my book is out there, which I don't have access to put my hands on right now, but it's called Freedom: What is the Experience of Living Without Negative Self-Imposed Limitations? And it's a book with research with people about their resilience and how they were able to find freedom and growth from whatever they were struggling with in their lives. And they're from different backgrounds. And so 7 key themes came out of that book, the research that I did with them, that many people find helpful. You can find that on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and other places where you may get your physical, it's in hardcover, softcover, and also ebook form. You can go to reverbnation.com. It's reverbnation.com/Angela Celeste May to explore my music for my 2 albums. And music that I've done is also on iTunes as well. So yeah, those are some of the things, all around. As far as what I have coming up, of course, I'm continuing to teach music. I have some performances coming up, but that's a little bit later in the spring here in the Metro Detroit area that I think I'll be on with you again to announce before we do
Yeah.
them. What else? Well, a lot of the things that you already mentioned in terms of the boards and stuff that I'm on. I teach at college psychology courses at Wayne County Community College District here in Detroit. So teach the full range of psych courses throughout the curriculum. So that's I'm not teaching at this moment, but semester by semester I'm an adjunct faculty. I may have some writing things just stuff coming up, nothing imminent, but like coming up a few months down the line that I'll be able to share. So thank you for asking.
Excellent, Dr. Angie. Thank you for being on the Kim B. Davis Show. Every time you come on, we always learn something new and get a fresh perspective on a variety of topics. So thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you guys for tuning in. You can find me everywhere on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, or Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere on social media. And it's Kimberly Batchelor Davis. Bachelor is spelled Batchelor. You can find me on youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis. You can see the show there. You can hear the show at Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, and Wisdom. And you can learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. I hope you'll join us on our next episode. And as always, remember, be magnificent.